because the odds are in the trillions. And within 6 months of testimony, all of a sudden, 7 top FBI agents that were involved in the investigation died.
To Insights with Marsha. And while I'm thinking about it, why don't you drop us a like, subscribe, and we would love to hear your comments or questions for later on. I have had the pleasure of being with Dory Wiley. He did a fabulous podcast with me on JFK assassination. It was our most viewed podcast so far. I have people that I know calling me up going, you need him back. I've got more questions. We've got to have him. So we have him. And if you could say 2 of the most famous assassinations, which ones would those be?
Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy.
Okay. Well, we got the John F. Kennedy. Maybe someday we'll talk about Abraham Lincoln.
Well, that's an interesting one, too.
Yes.
Most people think John Wilkes Booth acted alone, and he didn't.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, there was a whole team of people hung in a conspiracy trial for the assassination of Lincoln.
We're going to have to do that one now, Dory. You know that. In the first podcast we were together, I said he was an expert on assassinations. You're really an expert on history in general, like nothing I have ever been exposed to. And at the end of this, we're going to say goodbye to y'all, and Dory and I will be filming a special segment, and it's a surprise. It's on a new movie that's coming out, and Dory's already written articles about it. But we're going to get into another famous assassination, MLK. And I grew up, you might not have been born. I was still a little kid when all that happened. So JFK I get because there's been so much around it. But MLK, I found myself having to go study and was really fascinated when I understood more of his life and who he really was as a person and what his mission was, and him being a pastor. And I didn't know he's 39 years old when he died. So I'm just really anxious to get into this with you. But first, I don't think people have an inkling at how multi-talented you are. You know how to do so many things, and you're involved in so many businesses. Would you tell them just a little bit about you first?
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I really enjoyed visiting with you last time and look forward to our topic of discussion today. I'm president and CEO of an investment bank and investment firm. We manage money for institutions and high net worth clients, family offices, foundations. And then we also do investment banking, which is mergers and acquisitions, or buying and selling companies, raising capital, things of that sort. And we're based here in Dallas. And it's a great business. We're really well known for what we do in the banking sector, but we work in energy and real estate and other sectors as well. And it's really fun. We enjoy helping people.
Well, all I know is I bet you graduated right near the center top of your class because you are so versed in so many things. It just blows my mind.
Well, I don't know that. No, I did not graduate at the top of my class, but I did okay. I did fine. But I am a relentless pursuer of learning. I have an insatiable thirst. That's almost a curse.
Well, cool. So let's talk about MLK today. If anybody doesn't remember, what was it? April 4th, 1968. That he was assassinated. But just like JFK, I found out the story we know as Americans is so far removed from what really happened. So is this going to be the same kind of thing?
It really is. And maybe I'm not supposed to ask you questions, but I'm kind of curious. Before you looked at anything and prepared for this interview, what was your understanding of the death of MLK?
My understanding would have been he was fighting for rights of poor people and specifically Black people. And our country wasn't ready for that at the time. And they would go as far as murder to keep that progression from happening. That's just kind of the central theme that's always been in my mind. I don't know if it's right or not.
And did you have any preconceived notions of whether there were questions around his death or that it was an open shut case and James Earl Ray did it?
I think the vast public probably thinks it's open and shut, but I'm a little bit more like you. I never, ever usually believe the first story. I doubt a lot of stuff and have to check it out. But I think the rest of the world at the time believed that.
Interesting. Well, from 1964, when Kennedy, after the Warren Commission report came out in September, Americans pretty well didn't buy the report right off the bat,
Okay.
which is amazing. Now, a whole generation, including me, were raised underneath that report. And I think we were raised to believe it for a while until that we did the work.
Yeah.
But immediately there was distrust in government, and it had changed because we went from an 80% trust in government, which today is now down to 7%.
I was going to ask you. I believe it.
Bad.
I believe it.
I don't believe anything. But if you can imagine being in the 60s,
Yeah.
if you were probably an adult, had done a little work on it, particularly if you were in political circles, you knew there was something wrong with the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
You also knew something was wrong when Malcolm X was killed a few years later, and then MLK was killed, and then Robert Kennedy. So if you can imagine going through that time span where all these people were just killed by supposedly lone gunman crazy people, then you may not know all the facts, but you're going to know something is wrong. What's interesting today is the focus has been so much on JFK that the other assassinations really don't get a lot of attention. And it's a little bit ironic because you would think after the first one they would get more attention.
Yeah, exactly.
But they get less.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because I don't know that it's less interest by the public. I think it's more just less knowledge and perhaps less promotion by the media or history or whoever's telling the stories. But Martin Luther King's story needs to be told and understood. You're right about his advocacy. He came out for blacks and civil rights and then poor and injustice.
Yes.
Now, what's interesting, and I've written an article about this that the Dallas Morning News was nice enough to publish back on MLK Day, is really understand his method of protest. Almost makes the assassination even more incredible. And I say that because he adopted a method of peace protest.
Yes.
He started with Gandhi.
Yeah.
Okay. Gandhi had this method of peace protest, and I can't say the word, satyagraha, whatever, but he called it truth force. He called it soul force. It meant accepting suffering without retaliation. And he studied that because Gandhi was successful, right? He separated India, a huge country, from Britain without firing one shot.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's an amazing revolution,
Yes.
And yet here you had King, who was a preacher and been to seminary school, and he had another model for that in Jesus Christ. And so he took what Gandhi was doing and made it biblical, turned the other cheek.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a sign of weakness.
Right.
He saw it as a sign of strength, hating the sin, but not the sinner.
Yes.
Very, very important. Not like violence against violence was no good. He called it darkness. Why would you use darkness against darkness? Only light can emanate darkness.
That's good.
King was really good about this. And if you think about it, time and time again, like when his home was bombed and he was persecuted, people wanted to protest with violence. And the tendency back then, because of such frustration, was a lot of riots.
Yes.
He was anti-riot. He never started one riot. And he would tell people, go home. If you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And his whole movement would have died by the sword if he'd have lived by the sword. The fact that his movement was so successful and is remembered today is not just because he was martyred or because he had some success. It's because of the method. The method was pure. It was biblical. It was a soul force. It was a change of the heart.
Yes.
And it's really amazing. And we need more of that today. That's a lesson we need more today. You see so much hate on the right and the left or between races or whatever, just pick a side. There's plenty of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
And when everyone needs to really focus a little bit more about loving their brother and living as a community.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dream speech.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talked about, so one of the stories I did hear was from a lady that was there during the time when he had a baby, Yolanda, and I don't know if that was his first child, and his wife's at home and he's at the church, and they firebombed the house. And when they heard people in the front yard, they immediately ran back to where the baby was. So nobody was hurt. But this lady said hundreds of people came with guns and sticks and pitchforks, yelling, screaming, ready to go get revenge. And she said he just like raised his hand and it was like, peace, be still. And he, like what you just said, it was like, we're not going to win that way. And when I look at the riots in Minnesota and Chicago and all that, it's like, we've gotten so far away from that.
I had Minnesota in mind when I wrote the article back on Martin Luther King Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I definitely see what you mean. It was a side of him I didn't know about, but it just, like you said, if it worked for Gandhi to get India separated, there's power in that, and I wish we knew that today.
Because it's pretty impressive. We need more of that. That's really good leadership.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how smart he was. Skipped 2 grades of school, and he's in college at 15 or 16.
Absolutely.
Brilliant man.
He spent a lot of time studying this from a theological perspective, and wrote sermons and theses about it. It's really, really impressive. It's very important.
Mm-hmm. So we said this is a whole facade we're looking at. What was going on?
What really happened?
What really happened?
Well, like the JFK assassination, it raises a lot of questions, right? So the first thing I like to tell people is, did you know there was a trial? There was a trial in the 90s. Family filed suit.
No, I didn't know. Do tell.
So the official story is King comes to Memphis, sanitation workers strike. 2 workers have been killed. And he's staying at the Lorraine Motel. He gets shot by a lone gunman crazy guy named James Earl Ray, who is a racist, they say, and that's why he killed him. And then James Earl Ray goes to prison and then eventually dies in prison without a trial.
Oh, without a trial.
Unshot case. They've got a gun they found on site. It has Ray's prints on it. They've got a witness that says he saw him up there in the room shooting it.
Yeah.
There's your case. Now, this case turns out to have a whole lot of holes and maybe a lot of fabrication, so a lot of questions. But we never got this trial. Well, after James Earl Ray died, Coretta Scott King, Martin Luther King's wife, and his family sued a guy named Lee Jowers.
Oh, I did not know that.
And Lee Jowers owned Jim's Grill, which was where the boarding room and the boarding house was. And they sued him for being involved in the murder of Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
And they had this trial and they filmed it.
Filmed the trial.
But no one saw it. It had no coverage. The media didn't go.
You're
It
kidding.
wasn't in the papers. It didn't show up on the nightly news. Basically, the courtroom stood mostly empty. It was kind of boycotted. Now, you can't tell me that the public wouldn't be interested in that trial more than O.J. Simpson trial.
Right. Definitely more than
Or
okay.
at least as much.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that got all the coverage in the world. You remember that like
Oh,
yesterday.
my gosh, yes.
Well, the media would get on TV and say, well, poor Martin Luther King was a great guy and a great American. Look what he did for civil rights. But that poor family, they're just trying to get notoriety and make money off of this.
Wow.
Now, what they wouldn't tell you is the sum that they sued Lee Jowers for in the civil trial was $100.
They just wanted to make the point.
That kind of makes, and they didn't make a big publicity about the results either, which was 30 days of trial, 4 weeks of testimony, 70 witnesses.
Whoa.
Because,
they should have been on the national news.
Should have been there. It was a great trial, great questioning. And the jury came back unanimous in less than an hour.
Whoa.
So not only was Lee Jowers guilty, involved in the conspiracy to kill Martin Luther King, so was the FBI and other agencies of the U.S. government, and the Department of Justice ought to reopen an investigation.
Whoa.
Now, what's terrible about that is when Oliver Stone did his JFK movie, there was such an outcry that we got the Assassinations Records Review Board, and a lot of things came out of that, and they shortened the time frame for the release of the records. If you remember,
yes, it was
the Warren Commission has said the year 2039, and they had shortened it to 2017, which, of course, the government's having a difficult time complying with.
Yeah.
But still, well, that movie had gotten a lot of play and a lot of publicity. This trial didn't. And it's a shame.
But does that also speak to who controls the media? And that's all the different networks and everything.
We still have a control problem on the media. We don't have a free press.
No.
I remember reading back in the 80s, polls among reporters and people involved in the media. They felt like it was their job to import their political views. Over 90% of them. 98% of them. It was important to impart their political views on the public.
Wow, I didn't know.
And to tilt the news as such. Now, I guess I'm naive. I sort of thought it was about
me too.
The old show, just the facts, ma'am. Just tell me the facts. Tell me what happened. I thought it might be about the truth.
Yeah.
And in my mind, if anything's other than the truth, then that's not news, that's propaganda.
I remember studied in class when I was a kid that the news had to be unbiased. And even if that reporter felt a certain way, it was his job to just the facts, ma'am. So what year was this that they all said, no, we're going to impart
in the 80s. Yeah. And if you remember in the 70s, during the church committee hearings investigating the CIA and the intelligence agencies for nefarious activities, it came out in the meeting and the testimony that over 400 members of the media were CIA operatives.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
A perfect example is there's an old saying, once a spook, always a spook, right? So all you got to do is look at the resumes, and so I used to, somebody would want an example, and I would say, well, look at Anderson Cooper. His very first job was the CIA.
Oh, my gosh. You're right. Yes. Oh, yeah. That is a
He's retired now, so maybe they replaced him with someone different.
Oh, no.
I
doubt it, too. Well, that says that, like, hello, all the light bulbs. Maybe everybody else's light bulb went off in 1980. Mine's just now going off. I knew some of them definitely showed their opinion, but I thought they just couldn't help themselves or something. But they're interested in giving their opinion. Okay, so we had that trial. So James Earl Ray pleaded guilty, but then later he said, I'm not guilty. What do you think about that?
Well, there's a whole story behind that, which is interesting because if you give the summary highlights version, again, we got he's there. There's a rifle with his prints on it, and he pleads guilty. And we got a witness.
Open and shut, it looks like.
Right?
Yeah.
What else do you need?
Right.
Right? And so for a public that likes, bullet point facts, that works pretty good. However, you have to do your homework. So if we started with the guilty plea, some interesting points about that is, one, Percy Foreman, whose lawyer, who told him he wouldn't have to plead guilty, then he becomes his lawyer and says, now you're going to have to plead guilty.
So that was part of it.
Turns out he paid James Ray $500, which you can't do. So that makes the guilty plea invalid, but we have the documentation for that. In addition to, he was going to get a big percentage of book rights.
Oh, my God.
Which that's illegal and not supposed to do. And then 2 days after Ray pleads guilty, under pretenses that Percy Foreman misrepresented to him, which was basically that the guilty plea doesn't really mean that you're guilty.
Okay.
This is just a procedure.
Okay.
So that's bothering James Ray. 2 days later, shows up court. I want to rescind that. The judge is looking at that over the course of the month, and he goes to his office to review the paperwork on that, and mysteriously has a heart attack while he's looking at the paper.
Oh, my goodness.
Standard courtroom procedure would be to grant him his rescission.
Yeah.
If you plead guilty to something today, you come back tomorrow, change your mind. It's pretty standard to change that, okay? Especially in Tennessee law. And you get a new judge doesn't change it. He will not change it. And they had spent the rest of his life trying to rescind that with all the very credible evidence that made it an illegal deal to begin with. And in fact, a few years ago, I won't say who it was, but there was a guy that shows up that said, hey, I took 150,000 reasons in a briefcase and gave it to Percy Foreman with a note that said, I have 150,000 reasons for your client to plead guilty tomorrow.
Wow.
So that testimony is pretty interesting.
Wow.
So the plot thickens.
Yeah.
And it's not so clear.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, there's a lot of evidence that he did not kill Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And that there was a conspiracy plot behind it. And you would think truth would be of matter to the judge, but it wasn't.
Well, maybe into the first judge who's not with us anymore, right? But, oh, man, it's like...
Interesting. All right, so you want to talk about the assassination?
Yes, yes.
So there's a lot of questions, and I brought some paperwork to help my memory a little bit.
Okay, we will love it.
But if you remember in the JFK assassination, we talked about this Roman Caesars and how a third of them had died, and none of it was a foreign country. It was all an inside job. They went through the Praetorian Guard, the Secret Service equivalent. And we went through all the reasons of breakdown in the Secret Service and the JFK assassination.
Right.
So that's a great place to start with Martin Luther King.
Yes.
He had some protection, okay? Now, when he's at the Lorraine Motel, there's a group called the Invaders, which is, I hate to use the word militant, but let's call it a strong-arm African-American group that were staying in the hotel there, volunteering protection with him.
Well, that's good.
Also, anytime he came to town, there were some standard police units that were assigned to him that were black as well.
Okay.
Those invaders were dismissed by an insider of Martin Luther King's group that was an FBI informant. And according to William Pepper and the evidence that he has, that person was Jesse Jackson.
The plot really thickens.
With Jackson. Jackson
that
is
shows
the one also that called the hotel and made the change from an interior room to the balcony outside room. Jackson was also the one telling King to put on a tie, and he and King were having a little discussion about Jackson dressing up and wearing more, and he didn't want to. We surmise that it was to make it easier to identify.
Yes.
And then lastly, if you remember Jesse Jackson's actions, he gets shot, he runs upstairs, he takes blood, he smears it all over his sweater, and he wears the sweater for 2 days. And by day 2, when the whole town is shut down with roadblocks and plane flights, he's on a private plane to Chicago, gets on TV, and becomes kind of the anointed, much to the chagrin of all the insiders with Martin Luther King, a very opportunist thing.
Yes.
So all of that is very, very, very suspect.
Yeah.
And the FBI would have files on that.
Yes.
And they haven't been released. Okay.
Wow.
But let's go back to security. So the invaders are dismissed. The black police units that are normally assigned to King were never assigned to him.
Oh, my.
A black policeman that was over in the firehouse, which is very close by and has a view of the balcony, is called to police headquarters, and the director of the police and fire is a guy named Frank Holloman, who, by the way, had just joined a few months before from a top position in the FBI.
How convenient. Jeez.
So Frank Holloman and a guy who said he was with the Secret Service said, Mr. Reddick, your life's been threatened. You're dismissed. You need to go home. He protested, but despite his protests, they dismissed him, so he wasn't over there. And another move, Holloman calls off all the police units in the area and moves them out to a wider radius. So when you think about it,
wow.
And this was a big thing in the closing argument, and I love this. The closing argument synthesized the evidence into a really damning operational picture. Think of it as an operation.
Yeah.
Every protective and investigative asset in place around King was systematically neutralized before the assassination. Reddit's removed, patrol cars are vanished, the second floor of the rooming house was clear and controlled, where they were trying to set up Ray. The fire station captain was used to position 2 military intelligence Army observers who said they have photographic equipment and wanted to be on the roof. The back door of Jim's grill was ready for the shooter.
Oh, my.
This level of coordination required foreknowledge, authority, and operational control, none of which James Earl Ray possessed. Yes, these military guys, think about that.
Yeah, maybe they're really sharpshooters.
They could have been sharp. One or two things for sure. They were either sharpshooters, or if they did have photography equipment, let me see the pictures or the movie you just shot.
There you go.
Which wouldn't surprise me at all.
Because didn't you say there was somebody that was responsible for filming the JFK assassination?
Yes.
So now they've isn't that crazy? They like to film their assassinations to have on record.
It's very much an in-your-face type thing. One of the things I was talking about the other day on the JFK assassination is think about the technology today, even at that time. In the church committee hearings, they pull out a heart attack gun. Now, we may have talked about that.
No.
Okay. He pulled out a heart attack gun. And Frank Church, the senator from Idaho, was accused of grandstanding.
Okay.
But it's a huge moment. I'm glad he did because it's a big impact. He pulls this heart attack gun out, and it looks like a gun. It's got a little scope on it. And it shoots ice darts.
Oh, ice darts. Okay.
Ice darts. So
It'll
shoot
melt.
you with it, it melts. It leaves no trace, and it has a shellfish poison that's you can't track, and you have a heart attack.
Wow.
And the only way that we know that they really use it is I use statistics. So, for example, within 6 months of testimony being subpoenaed by the House Select Committee of Assassinations, all of a sudden 7 top FBI agents that were involved in the investigation died.
Heart attacks.
Some by shot, some by heart attack. And when you calculate the odds from actuarial standpoint, that gives me the clue that it wasn't a heart attack because the odds are in the trillions. And in fact, when I put that into AI to calculate from an actuarial standpoint, it came up that the chance of picking out a grain of sand in the expanse of the universe.
Wow. Wow.
So the word improbable doesn't describe it.
Yeah.
Impossible does.
Yeah.
So kind of the same thing here. Pretty crazy, right?
Like, let's never get around anybody too important, okay? Let's just stay away from those people. You
All right,
never
so
know
the
where you're
point-
in the show fallout.
The point I was going to make is with that technology, you can poison someone. I could put on a little rubber glove and touch you with poison, go away, and you die. If they want to kill JFK, they can kill him.
Yeah.
That's not enough. Think about public hangings. Why did we have public hangings?
Don't do this again. This will be you.
This is what happens to you.
Mm.
Why does Stalin have public firing squad executions? It's a display of power.
Yes.
What they did to JFK, what they did to Martin Luther King, and what they did to Robert Kennedy is an in-your-face display of power message to other politicians. And it gets back to what Bob Tannenbaum, the deputy counsel for the House Select Committee of Assassinations, tells about the story with Lewis Stokes, who was head of the committee. I don't know if we talked about this last time. So he's trying to get a subpoena on one of the top CIA officials, David Phillips, because he caught him lying to him about the assassination. He goes to Lewis Stokes and the committee and says, "Are you going to give me a subpoena? I'm having trouble. By the way, you've pulled our franking privileges, our long distance privileges, our travel expense privileges. And by the way, we haven't had a paycheck in a while." And in his discussion with Chairman Stokes, they say, "Well, you've done a really good job, way better than what we expect." It's obvious the CIA is involved. He makes that admission to him. But we're not going to give him your subpoenas. Now, Tannenbaum is shocked by this. He's like, why not? There's no gray in his world. He may be the most black and white person I've ever met. He is incredible. And he just passed away in January. He's a dear friend. We went to the funeral. Why aren't you going to give me the subpoenas? Now, the story from Chairman Stokes should chill every American for 1,000 years. He says, "You will not get those subpoenas from me." Now, Stokes is a lawyer, a defense attorney from Ohio.
Okay.
"You're not going to get those subpoenas from me or anyone else on this committee. And let me tell you why. Quite frankly, we're all afraid of what the CIA might do to us."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you factor that in with testimony of one of the agents they were grilling, who just laughed at him. "I don't have to tell you anything. These politicians come and go. We'll be here forever."
Right. Right.
So that's really frustrating. And so when you think about it, if they want to send a message, that public style execution
they definitely send the message.
is much more difficult than killing you with a heart attack gun or poison or something like that. You have to orchestrate it. You have to plan it. It probably takes a year. It's very, very difficult.
It's very orchestrated.
We have found some evidence and testimony that the planning on Martin Luther King started with getting him to Memphis for the strike. There's evidence that there was foul play in the murder of those 2 sanitation workers in order to induce a strike. Wow. And then when he comes to Memphis, there's a public pushing through the media because he's staying at a hotel that's white-owned, and they shame him. And we find that comes from one of the undercover guys that works for Holloman.
Wow.
Not from the media.
Wow.
And that undercover guy that works for Holloman is in the picture, the first one on the scene, over Martin Luther King when he's laying there in this pool of blood on the balcony.
Wow.
And what we find out during the trial is where that guy is during the trial in the late 90s. Where is he today? His name's McCullough. Oh, well, he works for the CIA in Langley, Virginia.
OMG. my goodness.
And the more you dig into this, the more rocks you uncover, the more of this stuff you find.
And Langley, Virginia is where the CIA was literally birthing assassins. Just no telling what goes on there.
Yeah.
Let's don't know anybody important, Dory. Nobody.
No one
Oh, my
important.
gosh.
It's pretty amazing.
It's extremely crazy. If we could get the whole United States to watch this podcast, I think that 7% trust in the government and media and all that would be like 0. But Jesse Jackson, come on, really? Wow.
I remember reading about James Earl Ray probably in the 70s. And even at that time, he was saying, hey, I was associated with this guy, Raul. And Raul was taking me around the country. And Raul's the one that was giving me money. And Raul's the one that told me to go buy this rifle that they set me up with. And Raul's the one that told me, and there was no trace of Raul. So I remember thinking at the time, there's no corroborating evidence about Raul.
Yeah.
Now, there had been tremendous work from the last 40 to 50 years on Raul. And now we know he did exist, did work for the CIA, and we have 5 witnesses, including Ray, that picked him out of a lineup on a picture. So he wasn't lying.
Yeah.
And so all the media for the past 30, 40 years, oh, he made that up. He's a liar. Turns out he was right.
Well.
And there's a whole story about Raul where they did orchestrate his escape from prison. We have a guy with the CIA who was actually discovered by Jim Garrison during the Garrison trial for the JFK that claims to have flown Ray out when he broke out of prison.
Right. Yeah.
And they had, by the way, the prison warden had admitted to taking $25,000 to just let him go.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
All of this took several years of planning. They were setting him up.
Gosh.
He's a patsy.
Yeah.
And he was set up. Here's the interesting thing, Marsha. Just like the JFK assassination, they couldn't ever, the FBI or the House Select Committee of Assassins, the bullet doesn't trace to that gun. It traces to that type of gun, but not that gun. They can't prove it. Fingerprints were on that gun, but they weren't on the trigger. The rifle, Guy Knight testified that he saw the rifle and the bag of goods that were left on the sidewalk that were left to set Ray up.
Yeah.
10 minutes before the assassination. How can the gun be on the sidewalk before the assassination?
Right.
We have 2 witnesses placing Ray somewhere else. He had left to go get his tire fixed because it was flat.
No.
And we have 2 witnesses.
Oh my goodness.
Everything changes when you do a little digging.
Yes. Just do a little digging.
Yes. It's very, very interesting. And Lee Jowers, the guy that was convicted in the civil trial for a $100 liability, on the stand, he admitted he had grabbed a smoking rifle from the shooter in the bushes and put it underneath the counter right after the assassination. Oh, and those bushes that were there, kind of like a grassy knoll, I guess.
Yeah.
They were destroyed the next morning. All mowed down.
After he testified or right after the shooting?
Right after the shooting. The next morning, the city did it. They found the guy who did that and who ordered it. And he said, where did you get the orders? He said, well, I got the orders from Frank Holloman, head of the Memphis Police and Fire Department.
Wow.
The willful destruction of evidence.
Willful. So, you painted a great picture for my understanding of why they wanted JFK out of there. They figured he was a traitor. He now had the button for the nuclear war and all that. Was I kind of right at the beginning why they didn't want MLK? What do you see as the main reasons they had to get rid of him?
In their mind.
In their minds.
In their minds,
totally.
And I've tried to develop empathy with the Joint Chiefs of Staff on JFK.
Yeah.
I have a little more difficult time doing that on Martin Luther King, probably because it's just, it feels more racist to me.
Yes.
Maybe it isn't, but it feels more racist to me. So here's the why. Everything was fine when he was doing civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
But then he started attacking the Vietnam War.
Oh, yeah. That's a big moneymaker.
And April 4th, 1967, 1 year to the day
right,
of his assassination, rather symbolic, he makes a speech at Riverside Church in Harlem, New York. It is an incredible speech for the ages about the problems with the Vietnam War and how he's against it and how it is discriminatory against poor blacks that can't get their way out of the draft.
Yeah, like college, if you were in college, I can remember, you could probably get out of the draft, that kind of
And he's against violence.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is the guy who did the trial in the late 90s, William Pepper, is the guy that talked King into re-examining the Vietnam War. I think he always felt really guilty about that because he knows that's why he got killed.
Wow.
I read somewhere, and I can't find it. I've got to find it, so I'm going to qualify it with you. But that LBJ was really mad. Now, this is a fact. He was really mad when he did that. He quit inviting him to the White House, and he said, we gave him civil rights. What else? And he's very derogatory in his speaking about blacks and Martin Luther King. And so this really creates a rift with him. And I hate to say this quote because I need to find it, but if he didn't say it, it's probably true anyway. And he's like, I have a whole lot of friends that make a lot of money on that war. And I read that somewhere because it really stuck with me. But I haven't been able to find it, and I'm going to find it eventually. But I've been checking with a lot of researchers. But a lot of friends did make out that, LBJ probably making the most because his wife was the single largest shareholder in Bell Helicopter at the time.
Wow.
And a lot of analysts point to the fact that that helicopter probably caused more deaths in Vietnam than anything else.
Wow.
They just almost forced its use on everything.
Yeah.
But his stance on the Vietnam War really created a rift. And Bill Sullivan, who was head of counterintelligence, labeled him and said he's the single most dangerous black person alive.
Wow.
And what we cannot allow, this was a strategy by the FBI through its COINTELPRO program, and this is all very well documented and well known, that we can't allow a black messiah to unite all the black people. And I think their biggest fear was uniting the militant ones that under the Panthers and perhaps Malcolm X with King. And King and Malcolm X would tolerate each other, but Malcolm was much more violent than King, and King didn't want any part of that. And I think Malcolm X was actually changing, but he was cut down before he could change anymore. So the persecution of King when he's not violent, doesn't fit the rhetoric. And they literally set him up. They said they tried to break up his marriage. They sent him notes. They told him he needed to commit suicide or they're going to expose him.
Wow.
They had these tapes of him with sex that they would play with everyone. Maybe they were of him. Maybe they weren't. His wife heard him, and she's on record for saying, I know what my husband sounds like, and that's not him.
Oh, that's good.
And, it'd have been easy to fake that. So I really don't know. But whatever it was extensive harassment and persecution that no one deserves to go through, especially leading a peaceful movement. So that's the why.
That's the why. Wow. Well, it's kind of like we said in your first podcast, you don't really think that somebody close to you would kill grandma or that grandma would kill somebody.
Yeah, grandma's an axe murderer.
That's
It's
it.
kind of just.
That's it.
What do you mean grandma's an axe murderer? What do you mean my country would do that? So, it doesn't mean America's bad. It doesn't mean we have a bad government. We have a wonderful government. We sometimes get wrong people in power with bad judgment. Sometimes we get people in power that just make mistakes, which we all do, which are, I don't agree with what they did with Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think I wouldn't have done it, but I can understand why they did it. They really thought we were going to nuclear war and we had to win first.
Yes.
And they thought he compromised that. With Martin Luther King, they came out and said he was communist and this, that, and the other. I don't know if the evidence suggests that.
No, I don't think so. So
I'm real disappointed in that one. I'm real disappointed in the Robert Kennedy one too.
Yeah.
I think there were extensions of a pattern of unaccountability that was flexed after the JFK assassination, and probably continues to flex to this day.
Yeah. Wow. I know I keep saying wow, but it's just wow. Yeah. So I have a closing question for you.
Sure.
If Martin Luther King had lived about another 20 years, how do you think history would be rewritten?
It's interesting. You could ask the same thing at JFK or Abraham Lincoln or whatever. You get martyr status when you die in the active duty.
Yeah.
And
it's not
I
good,
think
but
that takes you to another level.
Yeah.
The martyr status takes you to another level because we're all human and probably do something stupid to screw up that great reputation that you had for a short period of time. Because you look what they had, short periods of time.
Yeah.
I love to think that if he had stayed alive, that maybe he'd have been more successful with the Vietnam movement, pull that out sooner and save some lives. It clearly was a war that was a mistake. And we lost a lot of lives that we didn't need to. And then that maybe because of his style of leadership, of peace, there would be less racial division today.
And, I thought we were getting away from it for a while, but a few administrations back, I saw that racial stuff getting thrown up again.
It's something to sell. Right? Race peddling. It's something to sell.
Yeah.
I noticed this when I was on the board of teacher retirement system and I was changing the way the investments were. And a very well local investment guy here that people know wrote an article about how bad some of these investments were that we were getting into. I called him up and I said, you know better than this. Here's the reason. We're reducing risk. We're going to make more money. At the end of the day, this is good for teachers. And his response to me was very telling. He said, oh, Dory, if I didn't complain and criticize what you're doing, I'd have nothing to sell in my papers.
God.
So a lot of times unions are selling dissension because they got to have something to sell. And I think that happens sometimes.
Bad news sells.
Yeah, bad news sells. Or, I got to have a reason to support my nonprofit that sows division because that's the business we're in.
Yeah.
So I think a little of that kind of comes along. But I do think that if Martin Luther King would have lived, we'd have less racial division because he did it the right way. He was as big as Gandhi, and he was pretty pure in his morals and the way he was approaching it versus others that I call race baiting or race peddling. And I don't think he would have tolerated that. And you see that in his children and the family and the way they handle race politics today. They don't get in it. They don't get into all that. They're all about unification. Want people just like Martin Luther King.
Yes, I agree. Wow. Well, once again, you've made a subject I knew nothing about come to life. And just like you just said about you need a little tension in there to get everybody listening, there's so many ins and outs and who done it, she done it, he really did it. Oh my gosh, the gun was here, the gun was there. That kind of stuff just fascinates me all day long. So you made him come to life. I love
apologize because now you're probably going to want to read a book and get sucked into the black hole.
Yes, like you do. Yeah.
It's that in and of itself, the complications involved. At some point, you can't have coincidences. You remember the parallel I brought up. At some point, Michael Jordan doesn't miss 20 uncontested layups without you saying, did you do that on purpose?
Yeah. Yeah. Does that
Can't
AI?
be quite a coincidence.
Yeah. 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 So thank you so much. And we're going to have a fascinating topic we're going to talk about for our Friday viewers. And you want to give a quick tease of what it's about? And then
we're going to talk about the movie Great Awakening.
Yes.
And what it means to us as Americans.
I love it. I love it because we need America. I like what you said a minute ago because I was sitting there thinking, oh, we're so messed up. And you go, no, it's messed up people. It's a really good country. So I like that. Yeah. So we were so glad y'all were here with us today, and join us next week and join us on Friday for more Insights with Marsha.